Welcome back to day 2 of Water Quality. This is a Shout online conference, and you're in the right place for a fantastic day. I hope, and I do see many familiar names, so I know we have a number of people who are back joining us for day 2, and some of you who are back for yet another Shout online conference. You've been to the events we've done in the past, and we do have a fair number of people who are new, who are here for the first time, and so I hope everyone will join me in welcoming your peers and colleagues from around the world. Feel free to introduce yourselves in the chat area on the left side of the screen. As all of you know, we do these sessions live because we intend to be engaged in a conversation with you throughout the day. So if you intended just to sit back and take it all in, we'll let you do that, but we would much love to hear from you throughout the day and hear your questions, what's on your mind, why the particular subject matter we're talking about is of interest to you. So even though it says Q&A in the box where you're entering your texts and your comments, they don't need to be questions. They can be resources and best practices and ideas you wish to share with us. So thank you to those of you beginning to jump in and tell us a little bit about yourself. By the way, the Shout Online Conference Series is brought to you by the Smithsonian in partnership with Microsoft Partners in Learning and Taking It Global. So we thank all of these fantastic organizations for convening us and making this possible. My name is Jonathan, and I'll be on hand throughout the day to make sure that we have opportunities to share your questions and to hear from you. And so don't hesitate to let me or my colleagues who are logged in know if you have any technical inquiries. I sound like the flight attendant on an aircraft. If there's anything we can do to make your experience more enjoyable, don't hesitate to let us know. One of the things we are doing to make sure that this is indeed a community event that everyone can participate in is we are offering closed captions, and you'll find those appearing at the bottom portion of your screen, thanks to our friends at WGBH who are busy trying to take down every word we say. That's what you'll see on the right side of the screen is a little pull-down menu that says WGBH, and if you change that to no captions, you would be turning those captions off. So for any reason you don't need or don't wish to see the captions during the events today, simply change the WGBH pull-down to the no captions position. I'm also very happy to say that not only are we capturing and recording the sessions and making those available to you after the event, but we are also having our illustrators on hand doing what we call a virtual illustration. And our colleagues are logged in from the United Kingdom, and they are capturing what we call a virtual graphic illustration of the event. This will capture not only what our presenters are talking about, but what you suggest and the ideas you share. So you might see some of your contributions appear in these drawings, and they're all available on the Shout Learning website. Just head over to the conference area, and with each recording, you'll find after the event we'll post one of these illustrations. A great one, sort of like a postcard, a little bit of nostalgia, and one quick way of remembering all the big themes, in some cases small, important tidbits that you'd like to remember. Okay. Also wanted to mention that our events are one part of the Shout program, but not the only part of Shout. One way to keep connected with all of the Shout activities is to follow us on Twitter. You'll find us at Shout Learning on Twitter, but you can also use the hashtag Shout Learning if you are a tweeter. That's a good way to include all of us in the conversation and what you're learning as you share it with the world at large. And we really encourage you to tweet about little facts and important takeaways that you are gathering throughout the day. Some of you are on Facebook and have liked us on Facebook. We hope if you're not, you will do that. It's a great way to stay connected about upcoming events and programs and highlights that you will enjoy knowing about. And finally, on the social media front, do note that we are now on Pinterest. So you can follow us on Pinterest, and we have a growing collection of resources, images, and Smithsonian objects and links to people doing amazing things that are part of the Shout program. So if you are on Pinterest, check us out there. We're almost ready to start our first program of the day, but I did want to also mention that you do not, the only way to engage with us is not during these live events and the social media, but you can go even deeper and you can earn some recognition for the achievements that you accomplish as you explore Shout resources. You can do that through the Smithsonian Learning Quests program, which has you engage with Smithsonian websites, content data, actually go out and become a scientist yourself, perhaps an artist, or maybe you will collect an oral history and be part of our oral historian project. And as you do these things, you will earn badges that show that you are a Smithsonian expert yourself as you develop each of these skills and share them back with the world. So we hope you'll visit the link if you're a teacher. That's the link you'd go to sign up your classroom. If you're a parent, a great way to sign up your children if you are being homeschooled, for example. So we welcome every and all learner to join that site, and we'll look forward to welcoming you to that program. So it's time now to turn our attention to our first set of speakers for the day. Remember, we have 3 sessions. We'll be with you throughout the day. We hope you can join us for all 3. Our first session is called No New Water, and it will be led by our friends from the Anacostia Community Museum. Gail Lowe and Tony Thomas are joining us. Gail is a senior historian at the Anacostia Community Museum, and Tony is education program coordinator. And we're really happy to have both of you with us. Thank you for being
Wonderful
here.
being here.
It's a great pleasure for us.
You have a very intriguing title that makes us want to learn more, so we're in your hands.
No New Water is a simple way of describing the circular infinity process that occurs here on planet Earth. Water is the common denominator to all life, and we are trying to give a little insight into how educators and citizens of all parts of the planet can study water through their K through 12, actually K through 90 lifestyle and life period. Linda Hogan has described this no new water concept as a circular infinity of a planet birthing itself, and we're just going to describe this in detail. What is the name of the watershed in which you live? Since we all live in a watershed, and we're going to define that question a little bit better as we go along and make it clear to you as to how you can study water by just concentrating on where you live or where you go to school.
And you can let us know in the chat area on the left-hand side. Some of you identified your watershed when you joined us yesterday, and we have many new people joining us. Either way, we'd love to hear the name of the watershed. And if you're not sure, you can let us know that too. That's okay. You'll learn a lot about how to identify your watershed today.
Water covers 70% of the Earth's surface. 3% of that is fresh water. And we know some things about the freshwater aspect. Freshwater is water that doesn't have any salt in it. Then you have the ocean water, which is, they call it marine water, and it is quite salty. And when you mix fresh and marine, you get brackish water, which you would find in coastal areas, in your bays, and that sort of thing around the globe. Water running downhill does not mean that it runs from north to south. It just means, because in many places on the globe, water runs south to north. So that is, it's not north to south. It's water runs downhill from high elevation to the lowest elevation. And then all water is recycled. And we refer here to the water cycle: evaporation, transpiration, condensation, precipitation, and collection. The evaporation, if you take a pot, put it on your stove, fill it with water, turn the heat underneath of it, and soon you will see the evaporation of this water out of the pot. The sun imitates this process when it shines on a body of water. And so when that evaporation process takes place over the ocean, the salt remains in the ocean, and all you have is this fresh water then rising up into the atmosphere. Plants contribute to this process in a procedure that we call transpiration, and they allow their water out of their leaf structure to evaporate into the atmosphere. Humans also do this. We call this perspiration or sweating. And then this evaporation process turns into a condensation, forming cloud formations. Cloud formations become heavy with this water, and we then have precipitation, rain, snow, sleet, hail. And once that precipitation hits the surface of the earth, then we have it flowing in two different ways. Either over the surface of the earth, and that's what we call storm water, or it percolates into the ground and becomes part of our groundwater system. And then the collection occurs in your rivers, bays, oceans, and so forth. No new water. I used to tell my students that the water that we drink is the same water that the dinosaurs peed in. And they would have this violent reaction, I'm never drinking water again. But when you think of the cleansing process, the filtering process that the earth provides for this water, and there is no new water, then that filtering process is a magnificent phenomena, and if we didn't have it, then we wouldn't be alive, and the plants that we eat and the animals that eat the plants that we eat, none of that would be alive. So it's a fantastic system, and
Tony, can I ask you a question?
Yes.
When you say there's no new water being made now, or where does water come from originally?
Well, it depends on what you believe. Many different theories, but we started out as a water planet.
Okay.
That's where we started out, as a water planet. And there was water underneath the land, there was water on the land, and then there was water above the land. And that water has become separated over time. And
but the water we started out with is the water we have now.
The water we started out
with. And the only water we'll have to go forward in the future.
We'll ever get.
Okay.
And it takes about 700 years for a drop of water to circulate or navigate the Earth's surface. About 700 years. Watershed. You see here what this watershed is all about. It's a land area, and it drains towards a common low point. The low point could be a creek, river, lake, pond, bay, ocean, and the lowest point in that watershed is the name of that watershed. And then a large watershed is made up of smaller watersheds or basins. And then you have minor sub-basins. And so your backyard, really, or your school's playground, could be a major or a minor sub-basin, depending on where you're located within that watershed. If you are in a floodplain, then you're in a major sub-basin. And if the 50-year flood comes, or the 50-year rain comes, and the river comes out of its banks, then you will find out that you're in a major floodplain or a major sub-basin. And to give you a better understanding of the watershed, think of a bathtub. And on this bathtub, we have two faucets, okay? So these two faucets are the tributaries to the main basin, okay? And this is the lowest point, okay, in the watershed. And this area here, where it drains out of the tub, this area here is the name that the whole watershed is given. So here we only have two tributaries, okay? But suppose we had 20 faucets around the edge of this bathtub. or 30 or 50. And each faucet was producing water. All of that water that's produced by these faucets or tributaries ends up down at the lowest basin. Okay? In our local community, it's called either the Anacostia River or the Potomac River. And so when we start talking about major basins, sub-watersheds, then the Anacostia in my community is a sub-watershed of a larger watershed called the Potomac River. And the Potomac River is one of the largest feeders into the Chesapeake Bay, and the Chesapeake Bay feeds into the Atlantic Ocean. So another thing you ought to know about this watershed is this ridge up here. This is the highest elevation in the area, and it is not leveled. On planet Earth, that elevation is not leveled by any stretch of the imagination. It could be in some flat areas, but we have mountains and valleys and so forth, and so this fluctuates depending on the topography of the land. Okay, so it looks like we have some answers. The Neuse River, the Potomac River, the Harpeth River, Tigris, Euphrates. One of the oldest rivers that we know about on the planet. What is that? The Enpro River, the Yangtze, San Francisco Bay. Okay, Hugh Cobalson. Okay. El Paso, Texas, Hugo Ballston, New Mexico. Wabash. Okay, so we know a little bit about the watershed in which we live. So where does your drinking water come from? That's the next question. Is that drinking water, is the source of that water a river, a lake, groundwater, or ocean? So all three of these would have its own distinct processing procedure for cleaning up the water. If the water is brackish or marine, then you would have desalination plants. And in the United States, Florida probably leads all of the states in desalination processing of drinking water, because their water table is, their fresh water table is, that's part of their groundwater system, is very shallow. And so they have been building these desalination plants all around the state, and they're now turning salt water or marine water into the drinking water. Okay, so suppose your water comes from groundwater, that you have an aquifer or a well, and that's where your drinking waters come from. How is it processed? Is it clean enough to drink? Or do you have to go through a process in order to drink clean water? So where your drinking water comes from, or the origin of that water, will tell you a whole lot about what needs to be done to the water in order for you to drink it. And we don't use all water the same way. If we drink the water, it's one thing. But suppose we want to use this water for industrial purposes or agricultural purposes, or we just need to, wash down the front of the front steps of the building that we're in and come to work to. That water is not necessarily the same water that we drink. It can be in some locations, but it's not necessarily the same quality of water.
And Tony, I'm kind of curious. We've asked people where, some people have indicated where their drinking water comes from. But I'm curious. Not we'll do an anonymous poll here. Do you know where your drinking water comes from? Maybe for those of you who already clicked yes, you already put the name in the chat box. But I'm curious here. Okay.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, it is.
Well, that means that everybody knows where they live in the world, and they've got some interest in what's going on outside of their homes. That's a good thing.
Excellent. All right.
Yeah, it is. Next question is, where do your rainwater go after it lands on your school's playground? Well, this starts your journey into the investigation of your watershed. So when it rains or when it snows, what happens to that water? Does it percolate into the ground, or does it begin to run off immediately into a dry bed stream or a running stream? And how far is your school's playground from the lowest body of water or the basin? So how far does this drop of water have to travel to get to the basin, the main basin? And so this is a way you can start by actually taking a measurement of your school's playground, trying to find the slope, which way the water drains, and then decide, oh, well, if it goes into the ground, then where does it come out of the ground? Water that percolates out of the ground to start a river in another area has to enter the ground somewhere. And where it enters is called the recharge area. So this is the beginning of your investigation. And what happens to the water that drains off of your playground? Is it exposed to a little bit of everything before it reaches the main basin? All kinds of pollution are available for your water to be exposed to from your playground to the main basin. There's industrial pollution, agricultural, chemical research pollution, mining, and even forest pollution in some cases. Wetlands, there's high tech, there's military and government, there's point and non-point pollution. And what I mean by that is you can identify the source of the pollution or you can't. Many times you can't identify the pollution that comes out of a mine. It might not surface until miles downstream because it seeps out at a place that's not readily at the mine's entrance or in the mine's area. And chemical pollution, chemical research pollution, is often difficult to identify.
Tony, we've gotten a couple of answers to this question that I think are really interesting. One person says that the water from the school's playground runs directly into storm sewers, and then in this area out into the Chesapeake Bay. That's one way to collect water and move it. But if there's a real heavy rain, that water may not get cleaned up very fast before it gets in the Chesapeake. And then another person, same area, same region, the school playground water runs into rain gardens. So there's a possibility for the earth and the flowers to cleanse the water slowly before it gets into the river and into the bay and into the ocean, and clean it up before it hits those sources that we're then going to draw from again. So those are two different ways of handling rainwater runoff in the same region. And we'll have to think, everybody should think about what's the best way for handling rainwater and for making sure that the earth gets to do the job it's set up to do, which is filtering and cleaning our water.
Many jurisdictions are using what we call green technology to address stormwater runoff. We have green roofs, we have these rain gardens, we have rain barrels that are hooked up to downspouts, and this water is then channeled or reused by water gardens and that sort of thing. So, and we'll talk a little bit more about how we go about cleaning up the storm water and the projects that are available. I want to take you on a little journey. Years ago, I was a science resource teacher at Lucy D. Slowe Elementary School in Washington, D.C. And we have an environmental science program where we studied the watershed in which we lived. And the watershed was the Potomac River watershed. And we would take 2 trips a year, and each trip was a week long. The first trip was up to Fairfax Stone, and this is a picture of the monument, the historical monument at Fairfax Stone, where the Potomac River bubbles up out of the ground. And it's probably about the size of the seat cushion that you're in currently. And the elevation of this Fairfax Stone is 3,300 feet above sea level. That's where the Potomac River bubbles up out of the ground. We would follow it back down through the watershed back down to Washington, D.C. In the process, we would visit caverns, and we would explore groundwater in these caves. We would climb mountain peaks, and we would do whitewater rafting trips. We would do water quality testing from the Fairfax Stone all the way back down to Washington, D.C. And then we would continue that journey in the spring of the year, and we would go from the 14th Street Bridge right in the middle of Washington, D.C. Down to Point Lookout. So they would see the river from its inception, the size of a seat cushion, which we call the head of the river, and then they would follow it all the way down to the mouth, which was at Point Lookout, and the mouth is 11 miles wide. And by the time we finished these 2 trips during the course of the year, then the students would have a real good understanding of what a watershed was, how it operates, what their duties and responsibilities were to the watershed and to the people who live downstream. You will see here, you can see the thing that the children were most interested in was this snake that was that we saw laying right beside a rock outcrop, and the puddle that was the beginning of the Potomac River. It was real fascinating to them. So, and that's where we would start our journey. Then we would go to Seneca Rocks, and this is an area that is at the elevation, that elevation here, the top of the rocks. I guess that wasn't right here. There, okay. The top of the rocks up here is 900 feet from the confluence, and confluence is when 2 bodies of water merge. The confluence of the Seneca Creek with the North Fork of the South Branch of the Potomac River. So this is 900 feet up in elevation. And that's what it looks like on the ground. This is the platform at the base of the top of the outcrop, which is right about here. That platform you're looking at is right about in here. And then this is the view. Is there any way that we could bring this down? This is the view from the top. And one of the joys that I had as the teacher, as the educator, was to see the children who many had never been out of the city before, to look down on this site, and they would actually say, you know, Mr. Thomas, we're looking down on the birds. We can actually see the birds flying below us. And it was a study that I think was beneficial to all the students who came through that curriculum over the course of the years that I was there. This is the whitewater rafting trip on the river itself. And we had the opportunity to leap out of the raft and float down the river. And my principal always said, Thomas, make sure you bring all of the students back alive. And but it was a wonderful journey. And this journey then became a jumping off point to educate not only the school but their parents and the rest of the community. So how did we do this? During this trip, we used topographical maps, remote imagery maps, and we can have access to these maps outside of the United States. This Wikipedia site will give you access to topographical maps. It is always a good idea to take the children even outdoors on the playground. Use the topographical map, find your location on that map, and then say, how far above sea level are we? And they then can determine where their watershed ridge is, and they'll have a better understanding of this process of a watershed. Those of you that live in the United States, USGS or United States Geological Survey, you can get the maps at this site, and that is the picture that what do you call this, Jonathan?
The pointer there?
No,
Screen capture.
Screen capture. Okay, the screen capture is the home page of USGS, and there is all kinds of educational information for educators. You can get posters. You can get educational products. You go to Maps, Imagery, and Publications at the website. Then you click on posters and educational products and water, and all kinds of posters come up. Make sure that you order with you. Make sure you order the topographical map symbols guide when you order your maps. These are agencies within the United States government, and EPA, National Oceanographic Atmospheric Administration, National Science Teachers Association, Project Learning Tree, Project WET, Project WILD, World Wildlife Fund. Cornell has a ornithology lab that caters to birds of all kinds in urban areas. These are some locations that you can go for funding. And if what we did, we stayed at a retreat site that was owned by a religious organization. They gave us the site for free. You can contact religious organizations in your area. Businesses and corporations always are looking to spend money for education. They will be glad to give up their lodging, their retreat sites, and their transportation. And then grant funding can be found, state, local government, and non-government organizations. Okay, and that's it.
Great, Tony. Hi, everybody. This is Gail. Tony's been talking to you in general in general about watersheds. And I want to introduce you to our local watershed here, one of the local watersheds here in the Washington area, and one that's under a lot of scrutiny these days. And that's the Anacostia watershed, named for its lowest point, the Anacostia River. The watershed, as you can see here from these high points, runs through Montgomery County, Maryland, Prince George's County, Maryland. The river starts at Bladensburg, Maryland, right in one of the DC suburbs, and then flows down through the city, right through the city, to meet up with the Potomac River, and then to flow on into Chesapeake Bay. One of the first mentions of the Anacostia River was by Captain John Smith when he explored the Potomac, the Chesapeake Bay, and what was called the eastern branch of the Potomac, which what we now call the Anacostia River, and he encountered certain nations of Native American peoples living in the area. And right here where it says Nacotchtank, we're right along the shores of the Anacostia River, in the southeast part of Washington, D.C. Think of that name a little bit. So my question to you is, from what I've just said, where do you think the name Anacostia came from? And your hint is, think of the Latin form of Nacotchtank, the Native American peoples who inhabited this area thousands of years ago.
And you can take a guess. We don't expect everybody to know the answer to this, but based on the clues you have and looking at the map and the clue that Gail has put up, what would be your best guess as to what Anacostia means or where it got its name from? Any guesses?
No,
Go
I'll
ahead
give
and
you a
look at
minute
that.
to think about that.
Yeah. We're starting to see some responses come in.
Okay.
Cynthia says the Nacotchtanks lived along the river.
Absolutely. Good. If you keep saying Nacotchtank to yourself, and you're an English explorer who maybe knows Old English and a little Latin, because that may have been the common language, trading language as well, and you keep saying Nacotchtank real fast, you sort of get to Nacostine. And then if you really slur it a little bit, you'll get to Anacostia. So, but it's one way. Yeah, that's exactly how
right.
you make. As one person says, if you say it out loud to yourself, that's exactly how you make Latin sound like Nacotchtank. And that's how many of our words have come to us. People trying to speak them, and they say them quickly, or begin to slur them, or begin to use shortened forms, and you now get another word in a new language, but you preserve the meaning of the old. And Nacotchtank means a village of traders. So trading along a major river was a good thing at the time. The river is regarded as a wonderful asset and natural resource. It was teeming with fish and wildflowers and wildlife, and there's trees for timber and everything. But over time, as the nation's capital, the District of Columbia, grew between the Potomac River and across the Anacostia rivers, city development and human habitation changed the way the river ran, and it began to silt in. It wasn't deep enough anymore for shipping to go up and down. And then the Washington Navy Yard was situated on the north side of the Anacostia River, and in making ships and making armament for munitions and armament for war, a lot of chemicals and runoff was discharged into the river. And very quickly, the Anacostia River became polluted. When the river also became the major source for draining used water from humans and buildings and animals at the zoo and everything else, and all that sewer water was pumped into the river, it was pumped through a system called combined sewer overflow. And it took rainwater and wastewater all in the same pipe. When heavy rains came and really flooded the sewers, anything that was in the pipe got pushed immediately into the river without having a chance to settle and go to the cleaning station. And so the little formula, I call it, is that combined sewer overflow plus stormwater equals major pollution problems for the river and its communities. Now, what happens with the Anacostia happened with the Potomac River, and that sort of thing can happen with any river in any urban area anywhere in the world. So it's one of the problems that all of our communities worldwide have to look at. Oh my, this is a question for you. Have you ever experienced fog? Tell me what you think fog is, or what it means to you. And see if you can look at this picture carefully and see what kind of fog this is.
Well, I note that our colleague joining us online from the San Francisco Bay Area, who said she was in the San Francisco Watershed, said yes, she knows what fog is.
She does.
But are we talking about the same kind of fog that you are?
And what kind of fog does she think?
Let's find out.
She knows.
When you think of fog, what do you think of? Michael says maybe FOG is an acronym for Foreign Object in Great.
That's not bad.
That's not bad at all.
That is close. That's close.
Fog in the air, Denise says.
Fog in the air. It could be mist. Well, this kind of fog is fats, oil, and grease. Fats, oil, and grease in a sewer line. When you cook and you have your bacon drippings and you don't put them in a jar to put them in the refrigerator to solidify, to then put out in the garbage, and you pour the bacon drippings down the sink drain, that's fat, and it goes into this big sewer that's collecting fats, oil, and grease from all the houses in all the neighborhoods and from all the restaurants, from all the chicken shacks and all the fine upstanding dining establishments anywhere in the region. And fog clogs not just your own arteries with cholesterol overload, but fog clogs the river as an artery of recreational and commercial life, because all this fat, oil, and grease flows right into the river. We don't like that. So your jurisdiction, your city, your county is probably having trouble with fog, whether it's in the air or in the sewer lines, and is really trying to clean all that up before it gets to the sewer, so that it's disposed of properly, but once in the sewer line, so that it's disposed of and cleaned up before it gets actually into the river water.
That's an interesting comment. Someone from Cynthia just said she solidifies her oils, fats, and grease, or fats, oils, and grease, and throws them out because she doesn't want plumbing problems later.
That's true.
And that's exactly what you will get
That
if you put the fog down the drain.
that's exactly
Plumbing
right.
problems later.
Plumbing problems. So, what would you do? You can think about this. You can chat with us right now if you want to, but you can think about it and talk with your friends and your neighbors and your schoolmates. What would you do to clean up the river or stream in your area? What would you do to reduce trash from your house before and so that the trash doesn't land in the river? What would you do to encourage your family and community to take pride in your river and to monitor its health so that it stays a natural asset and not a problem for your community? Just think about that. If you've got someone says yes, they'd recycle. Absolutely. There are many things that we have that we can use again, that we can have a different use for, and so that those things don't become trash. That's a very good idea. But just think about those questions a little bit. Now, a couple of other things that I'd like you to think about for yourself, for your classmates, for your family and your community, is what do you wish for the river? Whatever is going on with the river in your area, if it's been polluted and you can't use it for boating and swimming, or if there's a lot of land development around it and you may be losing access to the river, what do you really envision? What would you like to see done with your river?
And whatever the answer is for you would be the project that you could start investigating and using the resources that were on the slides previously for the assisting you in this investigation. You can do it as an individual, or you can do it as a class, you can do it as a community group. What is it that you wish to do for your river? And it starts either in your backyard, front yard, school playground, local community park.
Right. Another question you might want to ask yourself is, instead of all that bottled water that you lug home and that you pay $1.50 for in the vending machines, what if you could turn on your tap and drink the water that's been cleaned and recycled from your river? Would that save your community money? Would that make water more readily accessible to you? Could you get a drink anytime you wanted it? Anywhere, anytime you were near a sink and a faucet? Do you think you drink more water and be more, and that would be more helpful for you than sodas and processed drinks? Just what would happen if you could drink the water directly from the river, or cleaned and drawn from the river to your tap?
Do we know where that water's coming from that's in the bottles?
Same place that the water's coming from that's in the tap in many instances. Oh, I like this. Someone says they've heard about a Take Back the Tap program that advocates for safe drinking water from the tap.
Yes.
That's a good idea.
Yes.
That's a real good idea.
Yes.
And yes, it's not just that it would be a miracle to have safe drinking water from the river, but that's a miracle that we can work toward achieving.
Many cities are taking back the tap. They have programs.
Right. Why are you, if you're in an area and you're and you're really interested in your river and in making sure that it's clean and safe, why are you involved in river cleanup? Share some of your reasons and encourage your friends.
We had a couple of interesting comments here. Anna, who joins us from Iraq, says it's really a social justice issue as well, because think about who can afford bottled water and who can't.
That's
correct.
that's an excellent comment, Anna. In some instances, having access to clean water, to to river water that's swimmable, fishable, and drinkable is a social justice and environmental justice issue for those communities that are downstream from upstream communities. Remember, water flows downhill. And so if folk upstream are not being careful about what gets into the water there, all that mess flows down to the communities that are downstream, and they bear the burden, not only of not being able to use the rivers as well, but they also bear a lot of the burden for cleaning up. And you're right, it's an issue and an expense that all of us should share more equally and not burden each other with.
And Gail, we'll be wrapping up in just
Okay.
a moment, but I did want to share also Stephanie's comment, which I think is fantastic. I wonder how accessible public water fountains are in all communities. Might be interesting as a project to map where you can find a drinking fountain in your community.
Oh, I like that, Stephanie.
And-
That's a good project.
And not only map where the drinking waters are, but test the waters
Water.
that come out of those drinking fountains and see if you can determine a difference in the quality of water. I had a former student who did this project, and they found that the quality of water coming out of old pipes was not the same as new construction. And so it tells you a little bit about the aging process of the piping system and the plumbing that we have. It was a very a good project, and I think this is a good comment here.
And as we get to wind up, let me just leave you with a couple of other questions just for you to think about. How do you use the river? Do you use it personally for recreational uses or religious, spiritual comfort, or you're just thinking about it as drinking water? And what do you love about the river and the streams and the creeks in your area? Take that love and share it widely.
It's funny, many people talk about you talk about the spiritual connection to rivers and to water in general. Many people comment that when they're swimming or when they're bathing, and they have the most clarity of thinking, and they're able to really see the world. And when you think about it, our planet and our local watershed and the rainwater that coats it is also giving it that kind of clarity and connection.
Well, there's a real reason for that, too, Jonathan. A human being is 65% water, and the human brain is 70% water. When we're in the river, when we're singing in the shower, when we're having a picnic along the riverbank, we're really in our true element.
Well said. And we will leave it there with our sincere gratitude to Gail and Tony for leading us through the watershed, helping us see the worlds around each of us a little better. And I hope you will take their advice and answer some of these questions by seeking out the resources they shared, perhaps taking on a project or connecting with other projects in your watershed. So how does your backyard fit into your watershed? We hope you have a better sense of that, and we'll take the steps to know even more. Thank you both. I did want to mention that at the top of the screen we have an evaluation link. If this is the last session you'll be attending with us today, please do take a moment and fill that out. But we hope you'll stick around for the next two sessions as well, and just fill out the evaluation at the conclusion of the last session that you'll be attending today.
And I think our email addresses are posted. We're both here at the Smithsonian. I'm Lowe G at si.edu, and Tony Thomas is Thomas A at si.edu. Please get in touch with us. We have other resources that we can share with you.
That's very kind and gracious. Thank you both for your time and sharing your contact info with us. We'll be back in just under 5 minutes, actually more like 3.5, with our next session, which is Mi Tierra, Mi Mundo, my land, my earth, my world, science and culture of the watershed. And we're going to be going into the virtual world to learn about a virtual role-playing adventure game that explores the relationship of culture and the environment, and you won't want to miss it. So stay right where you are. No need to exit the room. That session will begin right here in just a few minutes. Thanks, everybody.